Hello and welcome to English with Ryan. Let me tell you something that might completely change the way you see your English listening. You are not bad at listening. Yes, even if you've been learning English for years, even if you still need subtitles, even if native speakers sound like they're speaking a completely different language, the problem is not you. The problem is how you were trained. Most people learn English like this. Memorize vocabulary, study grammar, do exercises, and maybe listen to some audio here and there. It looks productive. It feels like progress. But then, reality hits. You watch a movie and understand nothing. You hear a native speaker, and it sounds like noise. You know the words, but you can't catch them. Why? Because real English is not the same as textbook English. In real life, words don't come one by one. They connect. They disappear. They change. Native speakers don't say, "What are you going to do?" They say, "What you gonna do?" And no one taught you how to hear that. So your brain panics. It tries to translate every word. It falls behind. It gets overwhelmed. And after a few seconds, you give up. That's not a listening problem. That's a training problem. Think about it like going to the gym. If someone gives you the wrong exercises, wrong form, wrong plan, you won't get stronger. Not because you're weak, but because the method is wrong. English listening works the same way. You don't improve by just listening more. You improve by listening the right way. In this series, I'm going to show you exactly how. Not theory, not boring rules, but a step-by-step system that actually trains your brain to understand real English, even if you're a complete beginner. You'll learn why native speakers sound so fast, how to train your ears to catch real speech, and how to go from "I understand nothing" to "I get most of it." No talent required. No living abroad. No magic. Just the right method. So, if you've ever felt frustrated, stuck, or like English listening is impossible, good, because that means you're exactly where you need to be. Let's fix the way you've been learning, and everything will start to change. Chapter 2. Why you can't understand native speakers. You already know many English words. You've studied grammar. You've done exercises. But when a native speaker talks, everything falls apart. It feels like the words disappear. That's because spoken English is not clean, slow, or separated. It's fast, messy, and connected. The first thing you need to understand is this. Native speakers don't pronounce words the way you learned them. They connect words together. For example, "Did you eat yet?" becomes "Did ya eat yet?" "Want to" becomes "wanna." "Going to" becomes "gonna." To your brain, these sound like completely new words, but they're not. They're just natural speech. The second problem is reduction. Native speakers don't pronounce every sound clearly. They weaken or even drop sounds. Probably becomes probly. Family becomes family. Interesting becomes interesting. Your brain is waiting to hear the full, clear version you studied, but it never comes, so you miss it. The third issue is speed. It's not just that native speakers talk fast, it's that your brain processes too slowly. When you try to translate every word into your native language, you create a delay. By the time you understand one word, the speaker has already said 5 more. You're always behind. And once you fall behind, your brain starts to panic. You stop focusing. Everything becomes noise. There's also something called linking and blending. Words don't just connect, they influence each other. Next day sounds like next day. Good boy sounds like gubboy. Don't you sounds like donchu. Again, no one teaches this in traditional classrooms. So when you hear it, your brain can't recognize it as something familiar. This is why you feel like you understand English on paper, but not in real life. It's not because your vocabulary is too small. It's not because you're not smart enough. It's because your ears haven't been trained for real English. Listening is not just about knowing words. It's about recognizing how those words actually sound when people speak naturally. Once you start training your ears to notice connections, reductions, and real pronunciation, English stops sounding like noise and starts sounding like language again. Chapter 3. The biggest mistake. Most beginners don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they choose the wrong level. It's very common to jump straight into real English too early. Movies, fast podcasts, interviews, YouTube videos with native speakers talking at full speed. It feels exciting. It feels like real learning, but your brain experiences something very different. Confusion. When the input is too difficult, your brain cannot process it. It cannot connect sounds to meaning. It cannot recognize patterns. So what does it do instead? It shuts down. You might still be listening, but you're no longer learning. This is one of the most damaging habits in language learning. Listening without understanding. If you understand less than 50%, your brain is guessing. If you understand less than 30%, your brain is lost. And when you repeat this process every day, you train your brain to associate English listening with stress and failure. That's why so many learners say, "I've been listening for months, but I'm not improving," because they're practicing confusion, not comprehension. Real progress starts with something called comprehensible input. This means listening to English that you can mostly understand around 70 to 80%. Not too easy, not too hard. At this level, your brain can follow the meaning. It can guess new words from context. It can start noticing how sounds connect naturally. This is where learning actually happens. Imagine lifting weights at the gym. If the weight is too light, nothing changes. If the weight is too heavy, you can't even lift it. But if it's just slightly challenging, that's where growth happens. Listening works exactly the same way. Instead of asking, "Is this interesting?" you need to ask, "Can I mostly understand this?" If the answer is no, it's not the right material for you yet. Another mistake is switching content too quickly. Many learners listen to one video today, a different podcast tomorrow, and something completely new the next day. There's no repetition, no familiarity, no depth. Your brain never gets the chance to adapt. Progress in listening doesn't come from variety. It comes from staying with the same material long enough to understand it deeply. When you choose the right level and stay consistent, something shifts. You stop feeling lost, and for the first time, you start feeling in control of what you hear. Chapter 4. Build your listening foundation. Step by step. Before you can understand fast, natural English, you need to build a solid foundation, not by guessing, not by forcing yourself through difficult audio, but by training your brain to connect sound with meaning clearly and consistently. Start with short audio. Very short. 1 or 2 minutes is enough. Long content feels productive, but it reduces focus. Your brain gets tired, and you miss details. Short content allows you to go deeper. First, listen without reading anything. Don't pause. Your goal is simple. Catch what you can. Maybe you understand 50%, maybe less. That's fine. This step helps your brain become familiar with the rhythm and sound. Next, listen again, but this time with the transcript. Now you can see what was actually said. It shows you that the problem is not vocabulary, it's recognition. Now read and listen at the same time. Follow every word. Pay attention to how the written form matches the spoken form. You'll start to see patterns, where words connect, where sounds disappear, where pronunciation changes. After that, listen again without the transcript. This time, your brain is no longer guessing blindly. It has a reference. You'll understand more than before, sometimes, much more. Then repeat the audio several times. Repetition is not boring when you have a purpose. Each time you listen, focus on something different. First time, overall meaning. Second time, key words. Third time, small details. Fourth time, pronunciation. You are training your brain layer by layer. Another powerful technique is shadowing. Play the audio and try to speak at the same time as the speaker. Don't worry about being perfect. The goal is to match rhythm, speed, and sound. This forces your brain to process English in real time. It also strengthens the connection between listening and speaking. Over time, your ears become sharper, your brain reacts faster, and English starts to feel more natural. This process may seem slow at first, but it creates something most learners never build: a strong listening foundation that actually works in real life. Chapter 5. Train your ear. Like a native, your ears are not passive. They are not just hearing sounds. They are actively deciding what is important, what is familiar, and what can be ignored. Right now, your ears are trained for your native language. They are optimized to recognize its sounds, patterns, and rhythm instantly. That's why you can understand your own language, even in noise, even when people speak fast, even when words are not clear. But when it comes to English, your ears are still untrained. They don't recognize certain sounds. They confuse similar ones. They miss small differences that completely change meaning. For example, to many learners, they sound almost the same, but to a trained ear, they are completely different. This is where targeted listening practice becomes powerful. Instead of just listening to content, you need to train specific sounds. Start with minimal pairs. These are words that differ by only one sound: bit and beat, full and fool, cat and cut. Listen to them slowly. Repeat them. Focus on the exact difference. At first, it may feel difficult. Your brain may not even notice the change. But with repetition, something shifts. Your brain starts to create new sound categories. It learns to separate what once felt identical. Another important area is consonant endings. In fast speech, native speakers often soften or almost drop final sounds. Bad may sound like ba. Next may sound like nex. If your ear is not trained, you miss these endings, and that can change the meaning of a sentence. So you need to train yourself to expect them, even when they are not fully pronounced. Vowel sounds are another challenge. English has many vowel variations that don't exist in other languages. Small differences in mouth, shape, and tongue position create completely different words. If your ear cannot detect these differences, everything sounds blurred. This is why slow, focused listening is essential. You are not just listening for meaning. You are training your hearing system. Use tools that isolate sounds, short clips, pronunciation videos, audio drills. Listen carefully. Repeat out loud. Compare your voice to the original. This is not about perfection. It's about awareness. The more you notice, the more your brain adapts. And once your ear starts recognizing these details, something remarkable happens. You don't just hear English. You begin to understand it automatically, without effort. Chapter 6. The power of repetition, but done right. Repetition is often misunderstood. Many learners believe that if they just listen to the same audio again and again, improvement will happen automatically. So they replay a podcast. They rewatch a video. They let the same content run in the background. But nothing really changes. Because repetition without attention is just noise. Your brain does not improve by hearing the same sounds. It improves by processing them. The difference is subtle, but critical. Passive repetition keeps you comfortable. Active repetition makes you better. To use repetition effectively, you need a clear structure. Start with a short audio segment. 10 to 20 seconds is enough. Listen once and try to understand the general idea. Then listen again. But this time, pause after each sentence. Ask yourself, what did I actually hear? Not what you think it means, but the exact words. If you're unsure, replay that sentence multiple times. Focus on specific details. Where does one word end and the next begin? Which sounds are clear? Which are reduced? What did you miss the first time? After that, check the transcript. This step is where real learning happens. You compare what you heard with what was actually said. And often, the difference is surprising. You may realize that you skipped small words, or misunderstood connected sounds, or missed entire phrases that were spoken quickly. Now, listen again with this new awareness. Suddenly, the audio becomes clearer, not because it changed, but because you changed. Repeat this cycle several times. Listen, analyze, check, listen again. Each loop strengthens your ability to recognize patterns. Another powerful technique is looping. Take a single difficult sentence and play it 5, 10, even 15 times. Not mindlessly, but with focus. Each time, try to catch something new, a sound you didn't notice before, a connection between words, a rhythm pattern. This is how your brain builds precision. Instead of vaguely understanding, you begin to hear clearly. Over time, you'll notice something important. You need fewer repetitions to understand new audio. What once took 10 listens now takes 3, then 9. That's progress. Repetition is not about doing the same thing again. It's about going deeper each time. And when you train this way, even a short piece of audio can transform your listening ability. Chapter 7. From slow audio to real-life English. At some point, you will face a new challenge. You can understand slow, clear English. You can follow structured lessons. You can handle audio designed for learners, but real-life English still feels overwhelming. This is a normal stage. The problem is not your ability. It's the gap between controlled learning content and natural speech. Bridging that gap requires a different kind of practice. You cannot jump directly from slow audio to fast, unpredictable conversations. Your brain needs a transition. Start by slightly increasing difficulty, not dramatically. Choose content that is natural, but still supported. For example, videos with subtitles. Watch once with subtitles. Focus on meaning, then watch again without subtitles. Notice what disappears when the support is removed. Those missing parts show you exactly what you still need to train. Another useful method is adjusting speed. Instead of forcing yourself to understand 100% speed immediately, slow the audio down to 0.75 or 0.8. At this speed, speech is still natural, but more manageable. Once you feel comfortable, increase the speed gradually. This trains your brain to process faster without panic. You should also expose yourself to different accents. Many learners get used to only one type of English, often American or British. But in reality, English sounds different depending on the speaker. Accents change pronunciation, rhythm, and even word stress. At first, this feels confusing, but over time, your brain learns to focus on patterns rather than exact sounds. That's when understanding becomes more flexible. Another key element is informal language. Real conversations are full of contractions, slang, and expressions that are rarely taught in textbooks. I'm gonna head out. That's kinda weird. You wanna grab something to eat? If you only study formal English, these phrases feel unfamiliar even if you know every individual word. So you need to include real, everyday content in your practice. Short clips from conversations, interviews, casual videos. Not to understand everything perfectly, but to get used to how people actually speak. Most importantly, accept partial understanding. In real life, even native speakers don't catch every single word. They focus on meaning, not perfection. If you wait until you understand 100%, you will always feel unprepared. Instead, train your brain to stay calm when you miss something. Keep listening. Keep following the conversation. Over time, your comprehension becomes more automatic, and real English stops feeling like a different language. Chapter 8. Build a daily listening system that actually works. Improvement doesn't come from motivation. It comes from a system. If you only practice listening when you feel inspired, your progress will always be inconsistent. Some days you do a lot. Other days, nothing. And over time, that inconsistency slows everything down. What you need is a simple daily structure that removes decision-making. Something you can follow even when you're tired, busy, or not in the mood. Start with a short session, 15 to 30 minutes is enough. Long sessions feel productive, but they are hard to maintain. Short sessions are easier to repeat every day. Divide your practice into 3 parts. First, easy listening. Choose something you can understand comfortably. No stress, no pausing, just listen. This warms up your brain and builds confidence. You are reminding yourself, I can understand English. This matters more than you think. Second, focused training. Use the methods you've learned. Short audio, careful listening, repetition, transcript checking. This is the most important part. You are not just listening. You are training your brain to recognize real speech. Even 10 minutes of deep practice is powerful. Quality matters more than quantity. Third, natural exposure. Listen to something slightly above your level. A video, a podcast, a conversation. Don't try to understand everything. Just follow what you can. This helps your brain adapt to real-world English over time. These three parts work together. Easy listening builds confidence. Focused training builds skill. Natural exposure builds adaptability. Another key element is tracking progress. Not in a complicated way. Just ask yourself simple questions. Can I understand more than last week? Do I recognize more sounds? Do I feel less lost when listening? Progress in listening is gradual. You may not notice it day by day, but over weeks, the difference becomes clear. Also, remove unnecessary pressure. You don't need perfect understanding. You don't need to catch every word. Your goal is improvement, not perfection. Finally, protect your consistency. It's better to do 15 minutes every day than 2 hours once a week. Because listening is a skill built through repeated exposure. Small, regular practice rewires your brain. And over time, something subtle but powerful happens. English stops feeling foreign. It starts to feel familiar. And once that happens, improvement becomes natural, not forced.